we have a strong correlation between the operation of well number 2 and the 2 seismic events that were noted through the seismic array. Again, all those criteria that we talked about on the previous page were identified, and those helped identify that correlation. None of them by themselves necessarily are highly indicative, but when you combine them, it leads you to a conclusion that there is a strong correlation between this activity and the seismic event. In part, one of the things that you look at, of course, is the spatial relationship.
What do you mean by the spatial relationship?
Proximity of the seismic activity to the injection zone.
And what about timing? What role is
Timing's another thing you look at. If they're not injecting, if they had never operated this well, then of course all that data that would come with it, no injection data, you look at that. So you look at the timing of the volumes, the relative rates they might be applying, the pressures that might be applied. You compare it with the maximum injection pressure that's allowed through the permit. So yeah, timing of the operation is also one of the factors that you review.
And then there's a reference in your report to no known prior history of seismic activity. Did you testify about that earlier?
Yeah, I did talk about that earlier. As we got this application in, it was about the same time North Star activity was occurring, and we were looking at it. As a result of the North Star, we started looking through any records we could find, just see if we could find any indication that there might be seismic activity or known faults in the area of an application. And at the time of this application and through this application, to the time we issued a permit, we had no knowledge of either seismic activity in this locale or faults in this locale.
You noted in this paragraph that we were referring to that the open hole portion of the AWMS number 2 injection well extends 8,502 feet and is estimated to be just 90 feet above the Cambrian basement.
Yes.
Can you explain that, then also use the graphic with the different formations? What was that as part of your explanation? Exhibit K.
Sure. What you do is you take the completion record, you take the surface elevation, depth of the well, maps that you get from other sources. In this case, we took a top of Precambrian contour map that was generated by a geologic survey. You find data points that were used to generate the contours on that Precambrian formation. You have to extrapolate out. I think the nearest data point to this particular location was North Star 1 well, which is about 7 miles away. So you extrapolate out based on the known data points. You estimate through a process, it's a defined process, what the depth at a particular point where you don't have a specific reference may be. It's a process that's used through geology, through geologic mapping. Through that process, it appears that the well might be as close as 90 feet, maybe a little bit closer, but it may be a little bit further, but somewhere in that ballpark.
Let's move on to your second opinion. I know there are some details are in the report, but we don't need to get through every detail. Let's go through the second opinion on page 4. In bold, what print? In bold print, what is that?